Welcome to another Explainer. Today we're unpacking something absolutely crucial: how modern organizations navigate complex moral dilemmas. Making the right choice isn't just about the bottom line anymore, right? It's about aligning corporate actions with a real, structured moral compass. So, we're going to explore the overarching systems that govern organizations, and then zoom right into a super practical framework that leaders use to make tough calls in real time.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover defining corporate governance. Then, we'll look at the business ethics factor, move into decoding the plus model, and finally wrap up with ethics as a competitive advantage.
I want to start by posing a rather provocative question right out of the gate. What actually guides a business beyond profit? For a long time, maximizing stockholder wealth was pretty much seen as the only real goal. But any action by a company inevitably impacts the welfare of its stakeholders and society at large. When an organization faces a crossroads, profit alone simply isn't a robust enough compass to guide complex, modern business decisions. Something else has to take the wheel.
Which brings us to Section 1, Defining Corporate Governance.
And this brilliantly illustrates our foundation, tracing all the way back to the highly influential 1992 Cadbury Report. It states simply and powerfully that corporate governance is the system by which businesses are directed and controlled. Fun fact, the word governance actually derives from a Latin verb meaning to steer. It's essentially the structural playbook of laws, customs, and procedures used to lead and administer a firm. Now, a system doesn't run itself, does it? It requires people. The primary mechanism of corporate governance is motivating key individuals, from the governing and regulatory bodies and the board of directors, all the way down to the CEO, management, and the shareholders, to align their actual behaviors with the overall corporate good. Good corporate governance aligns the incentives for all these parties under completely transparent rules. It ensures the aggregate value generated by the organization is shared fairly. But while governance gives us those transparent rules and structure, it doesn't always tell us what is morally right when those rules enter a gray area.
That brings us to Section 2, the business ethics factor.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the vital distinction it highlights. On one side, corporate governance is structural. We're talking formal frameworks, the bylaws, articles of incorporation, and recognized international standards like ISO 26000. On the flip side, business ethics is all about applied moral principles. It's that internal compass that helps us decide what's good or bad, what's moral or immoral, and what is fair or unfair when making real decisions. Because honestly, governance without ethics is fundamentally hollow.
And this is exactly why an organization's ethical profile matters so incredibly much. An ethical profile brings together all the factors that affect a company's reputation by examining how it actually conducts its day-to-day business. Think of it as taking a snapshot of a company's value system at a specific point in time. This snapshot clarifies the actual values the company operates by, provides a concrete baseline to measure future improvement, and crucially, helps the organization learn how to meet societal expectations they might currently be missing. It shows stakeholders exactly what they can expect.
Let's move on to Section 3, Decoding the Plus Model.
The PLUS model is an acronym, and it serves as a straightforward yet incredibly powerful framework. It's explicitly designed to help you evaluate ethical dilemmas across multiple categories simultaneously. Because, let's face it, real-world business problems are rarely one-dimensional. This model forces you to look at a decision from 4 distinct angles: policies, legal, universal, and self. Let's break each one down so you can see exactly how it works in practice.
The very first step in the framework is P, which stands for policies. This is your internal check. When faced with a dilemma, you first ask, what do the internal policies, procedures, and specific rules of the organization actually say? It helps decision makers determine whether an action is acceptable based on the specific rules the company itself has formally established. If your proposed decision violates your own company's operating playbook, that is an immediate red flag that needs addressing.
Let's move to and see how this builds with L for legal. Once you've checked your internal policies, you evaluate the external boundaries. This refers to the laws and regulations that absolutely must be followed at the local, state, or national levels. For instance, if a company is expanding its operations into an entirely new country, they are going to be heavily focused on this L category to ensure their plans don't conflict with the specific local laws and legal boundaries of that new region.
Next, we examine the U, which stands for universal. This category is great because it challenges leaders to look beyond just written rules and laws. It involves examining ethical elements that apply to everyone. When a leadership team focuses on the universal category, they're evaluating whether a choice truly aligns with the organization's core business values, which are explicitly defined by the vision and mission statements. It also forces you to consider overarching cultural norms, both within your business and in the broader regional culture you operate in. Basically, do your actions reflect a universal sense of what is right?
Finally, we reach the human element of the model, S, which stands for self. This refers to an individual's own moral compass and personal standards. It is the ultimate internal gut check. Even if a decision perfectly aligns with company policy, is technically legal, and seems to fit universal norms, you still have to ask yourself, do I feel this is right, wrong, or questionable? Can I personally sleep at night knowing I made this decision? If your own moral compass is spinning, you likely need to reevaluate the path forward.
Which brings us to our final section, ethics as competitive advantage.
So the crucial point is this. Ethical frameworks are not just feel-good, box-ticking exercises. Business ethics is increasingly being known as a major source of competitive advantage. When an organization actively evaluates decisions from an ethical perspective and commits to actions that enhance the welfare of society, they build immense trust. And in today's landscape, trust translates directly into brand loyalty, employee retention, and ultimately, a much stronger bottom line. Corporate social responsibility is a serious competitive lever.
Now, if you're wondering if the data backs this up, just consider the number 300. Way back in 1999, a landmark study by DePaul University looked at 300 companies. The research found that companies that formulated value-based, globally known codes for ethical understanding had a distinct edge. They were able to ensure proper decision-making at all levels, even when facing immense external challenges. By institutionalizing ethics through tools exactly like the PLUS model, these 300 companies proved that doing the right thing structurally leads to robust, sustainable business success.
This brings me to a final challenge for you. We've explored the massive structures of corporate governance and zoomed all the way into the individual moral choices we make using the PLUS model. But now, the theory has to become practice. How will you apply the policies, legal, universal, and self-checks to your next big workplace decision? The next time you find yourself in a gray area, remember this framework. It might just be the exact compass you need. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.